Hello everyone, this is Jimmy Kimmel. I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. 3 days ago, a document leaked from the White House titled Continuity of Government Protocol 2026, Electoral Contingency, buried on page 47, is a single sentence that should alarm every American. In the event of a national emergency, electoral processes may be suspended indefinitely. In other words, they're planning to cancel the elections. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. Hit that subscribe button right now, just you, because what I'm about to share is the most important story I've ever covered. This isn't about politics. It's not Democrats versus Republicans. This is about whether we remain a democracy or become something else. So subscribe and stay with me, because you need to hear every word. All right, let's talk about this document. 3 days ago, a White House staffer walked out of the West Wing with a copy of a 73-page document marked internal use only, not for distribution. It's a contingency plan, a playbook for how the administration would respond to emergencies, natural disasters, terrorist attacks, pandemics, and more. Every administration has plans like this. It's standard protocol. You prepare for the worst so you're not caught off guard. But this leaked document contains something new. Section 12, Electoral Process Suspension Authority. Here's exactly what it says, word for word. In the event of a national emergency, as determined by the President under the National Emergencies Act of 1976, and in consultation with the Secretary of Defense and the Attorney General, the President may exercise executive authority to temporarily suspend electoral processes at the federal, state, and local levels until such time as the emergency has been resolved and normal democratic functions can safely resume. Read that again. Suspend electoral processes, that means canceling elections. And here's the kicker. There's no definition of what counts as an emergency serious enough to trigger this authority. No timeline for how long it could last. No congressional oversight. Just the president deciding there's an emergency and elections are canceled. So why does this document exist? According to my sources inside the White House, it was developed over 6 months by a small group of Trump's closest advisors, not the full cabinet, not the normal White House counsel, just a hand-picked team. The people involved include Stephen Miller, Trump's senior advisor, Jeff Clark, whom Trump tried to install as Attorney General during his first term, and John Eastman, the lawyer behind the 2020 election overturn plan. These are not mainstream conservatives. They're people who repeatedly shown they're willing to bend to break the rules to keep Trump in power. Here's how they justify this plan. The legal basis comes from 3 sources. The National Emergencies Act, which gives the president broad emergency powers. It's been used many times for freezing assets, restricting travel, mobilizing the National Guard, never to cancel elections. The Insurrection Act, which allows the president to deploy military forces domestically to suppress civil unrest, last used in 1992 during the LA riots. Inherent executive authority. The idea that the president has powers not explicitly written in the Constitution, but implied by their role as commander-in-chief. Most constitutional scholars reject this theory, but Trump's lawyers argue that, in a true national emergency, the president can do whatever is necessary to preserve the government, including suspending elections. The document lists several scenarios that could trigger this authority. Scenario 2, coordinated foreign interference, undermining electoral integrity. Translation, Trump could claim foreign hackers or propaganda made the election unreliable, so it must be canceled. Scenario 3, pandemic or public health crisis preventing safe voting. Translation, future pandemics could be used to justify postponing elections. Scenario 4, economic collapse requiring continuity of leadership. Translation, if the economy crashes, changing leadership could be dangerous, so elections might be postponed. Notice the pattern? Every scenario is vague enough to be triggered at will, or could be manufactured by the administration itself. Constitutional experts are alarmed. I spoke with 3 law professors in the last 48 hours. Unanimously, they say this plan is unconstitutional. Article 1, Section 4 gives Congress, not the president, the authority to regulate federal elections. The 20th Amendment fixes presidential terms, January 20th, no exceptions. No provision allows suspending elections. None. The founders understood this. Giving the government the power to cancel elections destroys democracy. It creates a dictatorship. Trump's lawyers are betting on one thing, that in a real crisis, Americans will accept this. They believe if Trump goes on TV saying, we face an unprecedented emergency, and for the nation's safety, we must postpone the election, enough people will go along. They're counting on the conservative majority Supreme Court to defer to executive authority, and they hope that by the time legal challenges reach the courts, it will be too late. The election canceled, and Trump's still in power. Here's what happened at Camp David 11 days ago. Trump met with his key advisors to discuss 2026. Polls aren't looking good, approval ratings are mixed, and there's a real chance he could lose if the election happens on schedule. They discussed options. One option, actually improve his performance, better policies, better messaging, win legitimately. That option was dismissed almost immediately. The second option was to challenge the results if he loses, claim fraud, file lawsuits, and try to overturn the outcome in court. That's exactly what he did in 2020, and it failed. Too many judges, including judges he personally appointed, rejected those claims. That left the third option. Don't let the election happen at all. And according to this briefing, and that's the path they're pursuing, here's the plan as it was laid out in that meeting. Beginning in mid-2026, likely July or August, the administration would start laying the groundwork for a national emergency declaration. They begin warning about looming threats, foreign interference, cyber attacks, civil unrest, economic instability. Friendly media outlets would amplify these claims, exaggerating them to manufacture a sense of crisis. And then in October, about a month before the election, something happens. Maybe it's a real crisis. Maybe it's manufactured. Or maybe it's simply Trump claiming intelligence agencies have identified an imminent threat. He goes on television and announces, "For the safety and security of the American people, I am declaring a national emergency. Under the authority granted to me by Congress and the Constitution, I am temporarily suspending a federal election scheduled for November 3rd. Now, you might be thinking, Jimmy, he can't just do that. Congress would stop him. The courts would stop him. The military would stop him. Let's address each of those. Congress, Republicans currently control the House. Even if they lose control, Trump is betting that in a declared emergency, enough lawmakers will back him out of fear of appearing weak on national security. The court's legal challenges take time. By the time a case reaches the Supreme Court, weeks or months will have passed. His lawyers are betting that in the middle of a crisis, the courts will defer to executive authority. The military, this is the biggest one. According to the leaked document, part of the plan involves invoking the Insurrection Act and deploying military forces to maintain order during the emergency. They're betting that most military leaders will follow orders rather than risk charges of insubordination. One of the lawyers involved in drafting this plan reportedly told the group at Camp David, "The key is speed. We move fast, we declare the emergency, we suspend the election, we deploy the military. We control the narrative, and by the time anyone can mount an effective legal or political challenge, we're in control of the situation." That's a direct quote. We're in control of the situation. They're not even pretending this is about protecting democracy. They're openly discussing how to seize power. Now, let me tell you about the White House staffer who leaked this document. They contacted a journalist and said, "I can stay silent. The American people need to know what's being planned." They handed over all 73 pages. And then they went dark. Not literally vanished, but they stopped responding to calls. They weren't at their apartment. People who know them say they're terrified because leaking classified material, even exposing an unconstitutional plan, is still a federal crime. And Trump's Justice Department is already investigating, trying to identify and prosecute the leaker. Think about that. They're more focused on punishing a whistleblower than stopping a plan to cancel elections. Here's what's at stake. If Trump succeeds in suspending the 2026 election, it's over. Not just that election, but democracy itself. Once you establish the precedent that a president can cancel elections during an emergency, that loophole never closes. Every future president will know, if I'm about to lose power, I can just declare an emergency and stay in office. That's not democracy. That's authoritarianism with extra steps. We've seen this play out before. In Venezuela, Hugo Chavez used emergency powers to consolidate control. Temporary measures became permanent, and elections turned into a sham. In Turkey, Recep Tayyip Erdogan declared a state of emergency after a failed coup and used it to arrest opponents, shut down media, and lock in power. Turkey was a democracy. Now it's an autocracy. In the Philippines, Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law in 1972, suspended elections, and ruled as a dictator for 14 years. This is the pattern. Emergencies are declared, democratic processes are suspended, promises are made, and power is never returned. That's what Trump is planning. So what do? First, we expose it. Every American needs to know this plan exists. Second, we demand action from Congress, legislation that explicitly prohibits suspending elections under any circumstances. Third, we demand the courts establish a clear precedent now that a president cannot cancel elections ever. Fourth, we organize. We make it clear that if this plan is attempted, there will be mass, peaceful resistance, millions of Americans demanding democracy be preserved. And here's what's happening in real America right now. In Wisconsin, a teacher named Sarah told reporters she's terrified. "I teach civics. I teach my students about democracy and the Constitution. Now I'm watching the president plan to tear it all down." In Texas, a veteran named Michael said, "I served 20 years to defend the Constitution. This is what I fought against in other countries. I never thought I'd see it here." These are real people who believe in democracy and are watching in horror as it's being dismantled. That's what's in the leaked document. That's the plan to stay in power. That's the constitutional crisis ahead. And now you know. So what are you going to do? Share this information. Talk to your friends and family. Contact your representatives and demand action, or hope someone else steps up. Because if we don't fight this, if we don't stand up and say no, then it will happen. Elections will be suspended, power will be held, and American democracy will die. I'm not being dramatic. I'm not exaggerating. The document is real. The plan is real. The threat is real. And if we ignore it, we could wake up in November 2026 with no election, and by then, it will be too late. So here's what I'm asking. Subscribe, share this video, spread the word, contact your representatives, and talk to the people in your life. Stay informed, stay engaged, don't look away. Democracy doesn't defend itself. We have to defend it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for caring about the future of this country. Some things are worth fighting for. Democracy, the right to vote, and the peaceful transfer of power are among them. I'll be back soon. Stay informed, stay engaged, and remember, they're counting on silence. They're counting on passivity. Don't give them that satisfaction. Take care of yourself and your family, and be ready to fight for democracy.